In this long-awaited video, we're gonna do a couple of big things. Number one, we are gonna tell you, where is the Mach 1? I get so many questions all the time. Where's the Mach 1? Have you sold it? Did you get something new? I'm gonna answer all of that in this video, and we are gonna show you the new project car for the channel. But first, I think it's only fair. We did so much work and had so much fun with that Mach 1. Let's give it a brief history recap. You can rewind back to 2021. I went and custom ordered a Mach 1. I was looking for something new and different and that would be prepared to take everything I could throw at it. And I waited many months, but it finally arrived.
What's that, Bill?
What caught my eye about the Mach 1 package was everything that Ford included from the factory. There were so many bits from the GT500 and GT350 that made this thing a serious performer right from the get-go. And you know what? I did my fair share of break-in miles, but when I hit 1,000 miles, I took this thing straight to the track to see what it actually did. What blew me away with this modern Mustang was how confident it was on the track. I am by no means a professional driver, but I was able to get in this car and have a ton of fun safely. The car performed flawlessly on the racetrack, but like every car guy, keeping it stock just wasn't in the cards. And you know what? I did start slow, but the mod started coming. To kick things off, we installed some GT500 gauges. I ditched the stock prop rod and I modified the exhaust ever so slightly to make this thing sound just a little bit better. But you know what's next? You gotta take it racing. So I went back to the drag strip and I lined this thing up. And what I found was despite 480 horsepower from the factory, you just could not keep up with those old Fox bodies or the new Camaros, as you'll see here in this next clip. My wife crushed me at roll racing. So I decided if we're gonna get serious, we gotta be safe, and I addressed the one issue that's a known problem with these cars, which is the oil pump gears. They had to come out.
Ah! All of that work just to go.
But the heavy lifting, so to speak, was complete. It was time to figure out how I was gonna make this thing fast. Now we know that the Coyotes flow a ton of air, and what helps with that but forced induction. Now I had plenty of superchargers in the past, but I had never had turbochargers, and ultimately that's the route I took. We have waited, or I should say I have waited 10 long weeks. I ordered my twin turbo kit 10 weeks ago. After many back and forth discussions and phone calls with Hellion and my local tuner, I decided to pick up Hellion's sleeper kit. What's awesome about this is the turbos are hidden up underneath the car. It keeps temperatures down, and honestly, if you don't know what you're looking at, you won't even notice that they're there. Now there's plenty of other upgrades you've got to do. We had to upgrade the fuel system to support all the extra power. We went with a set of 4-in-1 turbo manifolds specifically for increased efficiency, and obviously the intercooler and everything else. There were many long nights and weekends in the garage. I'm super appreciative to my wife for supporting me during that time, but now it's time to fire it up and see if it works. For the next year or so, I just enjoyed the car. We took it out racing, I took it to car shows, we made so many friends at Utah Motorsports campus and had an absolute blast. Especially this first season, everything just seemed to be perfectly dialed with the car. The shifts were crisp, the traction was perfect, and we won most of the races that we had. It was an absolute blast. But as time went on, I started to realize I wasn't driving the car quite as much, or if when I took it out on the street, I was just yearning to be on the track. And honestly, the track days didn't come as frequently as I would have liked, and it started to get to the point where I just wasn't driving the car as much. Growing up, I would go to the local drag strip not far from me where I grew up in Delaware. Now in Utah, where I live currently, there used to be a racetrack that was here for about 50 years, but it has closed its doors. And while roll racing is a ton of fun, it's not the primary event that occurs at Utah Motorsports campus. So I would get a couple races in, and then I would just drive the car around town. And when I wasn't on the track, I just wasn't having as much fun with the car. Sure, it was totally reliable. It had no issues, but I wanted to be on the track. And it started to irk me that I had done all of these modifications to a vehicle that was so nice. And I started to think to myself, you know what, maybe I would have been better off just buying a barely running Mustang and getting that, kind of souped up, because I have this car payment every month and I'm paying for this thing, but I'm just not using it as much. So I decided I could go one of two ways. I could either sell the vehicle or I could double down and get really serious. I was so close to that 1,000 horsepower number. To safely do it, I knew I needed E85 and a full fuel system. Ultimately, I decided it's probably time to just stop where I'm at. I've had so much fun with this car. It's done nothing wrong to me. Let's let someone else enjoy it, and let's get into something that is truly more of a one-trick pony, but that is less expensive overall and allows me more opportunities to make modifications to this vehicle and to others. What happened next was kind of interesting and somewhat unexpected. My wife and I decided to go out and try a full day drift lesson out at the track. Now in this case, they provided the car, the instruction, and the tires, but it gave us both a chance to get in the car and see if we could figure out drifting. And what happened was we had an absolute blast. Both of us did. Now, if you remember and you watch the channel, you will know that my wife sold her Camaro somewhat recently, so we were down to just one car, and that was the Mach 1. And although I'm sure she enjoyed going to car shows and filming at the track, it wasn't like she had her own vehicle that she could be out on course, running and driving. And when we got together in that drift car, it was so much fun. It was like nothing we had ever done before, and there just seemed to be so much learning to be had. So what do? After drifting, the Mach 1 was for sure going up for sale. We had such a blast. My wife and I knew, you know what, we could get a car that we could both enjoy. Maybe we both eventually get a car, but we can get something inexpensive. We can save some cash, get something track focused, okay? We wanted a drift car. It was that easy. We did one full day and we were ready to become drifters, so to speak. Well, as luck would have it, the track reached out to me and told me that they were selling a car from the track. Now, it wasn't specifically a drift car, but it had a very interesting history. You may or may not know that Utah Motorsports Campus, previously Miller Motorsports Park, was the home of the Ford Racing Performance Driving School. So back in the day, there were tons of Mustangs and even a Ford GT out there teaching people how to drive. And one of the vehicles that they had was their 2006 modified Mustang GT pace car. Ta-da! Another Mustang! Okay, hold up a second before you kill me in the comments and tell me, oh my God, you sold your 2021 twin turbocharged Mach 1 for a 3-valve? Let's go over and take a look at this thing. It's honestly pretty sweet, and we're gonna have a ton of fun on the channel with it. Here she is. This is a 2006 S197 chassis 3-valve Mustang, but it's not any old S197. This 2006 only has 11,000 miles, and it's got a ton of super awesome upgrades. It is already a track vehicle. I'm going to show you why. And with a very few modifications, we are going to get this thing set up for drift duty. Taking a peek inside, this thing already has a ton of cool stuff done to it already, from the Sparco seats and Sparco 5-point harness to a full roll cage. This thing is a full roll cage race car. It's got big brakes on it. It's got a Hurst shifter. It's got basically everything you need to go and have some relatively serious track days on the weekends. Check out these brakes. These things are pretty mean. It's got extra long wheel studs. It came with an extra set of wheels and tires, which are gonna be great for drifting because we already have spares that we can set up. And it's got a handful of other modifications that make it really cool and like period correct. I'll give you some examples. Well, for one, Ford deleted the AC on this car. It's got no AC. It's got a big hefty radiator, a larger overflow tank, a cold air intake. It's got a larger mass airflow sensor, a ton of chassis modifications. It's got a huge beefy sway bar on it, which I know is gonna be hard to see. It's got strut tower braces. It's got one of the sweetest exhaust systems I've ever heard. It's got headers on it. an off-road mid-pipe currently, and it's got Ford Racing Performance head or mufflers. This thing sounds absolutely sweet. I'm pretty sure it's got 410 gears as well. It's basically set up to be a track ripper. I mean, this thing handles exceptionally well just as it sits. If you've never driven a car with a full cage and all of these chassis modifications, it is rock solid. It's got all of the basic stuff there. And like I said, it only has 11,000 miles on it. This is a 2006 with 11,000 miles. We got an absolutely killer deal on this thing. We're gonna be supporting the track by buying it, and it only needs a couple of things to go drifting. Here's what we got in the very near future, and you'll see videos on all of this stuff. We're going with a hydraulic e-brake. So to start things off, we need a hydraulic e-brake. It's the base model. It's got very basic gauges, so I'm gonna do a pretty trick gauge install and also save some more weight in the interior. We're gonna make that modification. We're gonna get some more steering angle out of the front for $0. What else are we gonna do? Oh, we're gonna do a Momo steering wheel. So you saw it's got the Sparco seats, it's got the cage, but it's got the stock super big wheel. We're gonna go to a smaller wheel with a quick release. What else? We've got some exhaust modifications. Unfortunately, we're not gonna, well, depending on how you look at it, I could trailer this as track, but I don't have a trailer currently. So I am gonna get it set up so it can be registered here in Salt Lake City. So we're gonna put catalytic converters back on it, get it safely registered, and then we can drive it back and forth to the track. This thing's gonna be a blast. I think my wife and I are gonna get into drifting with this car. It's gonna be something that we can both enjoy. We went and test drove it. We really enjoyed it. It's a platform that I'm super familiar with. This will be like my 6th or 7th Mustang, and it's already set up to just be an absolute ripper. So a couple little modifications. This is truly the first track car that I've ever owned, and I'm really pumped, guys. I want to drop a little bit of wisdom on you. And this is coming from somebody who is almost 35 years old. I know I'm not that old, but I have had a lot of vehicles over the years. I've modified a lot of vehicles. I've driven a decent amount. And I'm going to leave something with you here. And this is specifically with the Chevy Bolt in the background, okay? The best vehicle for you is the one that you use for its intended purpose the most, okay? I've got this Comet. All right, this Comet has absolutely no add-ons. It's got no AC, no power locks, no power brakes, no power steering, nothing. But when I take it out, I drive it like I stole it. I don't take it out on super hot days. It's a blast. I use it exactly what it's meant for. This right here, I drive it to work every day. It's perfect for going to work every day and commuting. The Mach 1 was trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that was its biggest drawback. So I think when I have the most amount of fun in something for a specific purpose, it tells me that I have the most amount of fun on the track. And that's what I've learned. I hope you figured that out through this video. That's what I've learned. On track is the most amount of fun. And that vehicle over there is meant for the track. And I'm gonna get to learn. I think my wife and I will be able to enjoy it together. We'll be able to learn together. Maybe we'll get to a point where we'll get a second drift car and we can both enjoy the drift cars out there on the track. Wouldn't that be awesome? Figure out what vehicle it is for you that you use the most. That's the best one for you at this given time. I hope you liked this video. There's gonna be so much more on that Mustang to come. We got a ton of modifications coming. I'm super excited and we gotta get them done quickly because there's some other news on the way as well. But that's for another day. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the decision. We didn't hurt your feelings too much. We'll see you next time on Truck and Roll.